Mr. Watts, he is armed himself shots. Shots, watch it, tear gas. Live rounds. Also, I can see that.
Just for Quentin! Everyone is a boxer, man. I like your put in the boxer, man, to do that.
But why not? Since my cousin there, no, you come on the East Coast.
You listen to me.
Right? No, you come on the East Coast.
You listen to me now.
You gotta listen to me too, man.
I am listening to
Right? Now, I see you on the East Coast. The day when they get a protest of them, the next day, that's when you see one bigger heads come up to talk to my family. Right? And that's bad. If we didn't do a protest, we want to see nobody for justice. You see? I'm not holding back nothing. I'm not holding back nothing. I just need justice for my family.
Please help keep Politics 101 on social media and broadcast television. If you are in North America, please donate via Cash App or PayPal.
If you are in Guyana and the Caribbean and don't have access to Cash App and PayPal, email your pledge to dhines6106@aol.com and we will direct you how to get your donation to us. Thank you in advance for your donation.
From the same place, that make the same trip, on the same ship. So we must push one common intention, it's for a better life in the region, for we women and we children. That must be the ambition of the Caribbean and the Caribbean and the Caribbean.
If you hear that, black is beautiful. It's a texture. Lift your head like me. You got to wear it forward with dignity. How it burn out. Black is beautiful. I said, sing it along. Black is beautiful. Say, I'm black and proud. It's my time that we get rid of that old slave mentality.
And a very good evening to you and welcome to Politics 101. Politics 101 on a Thursday evening. Would like to welcome all those of you who have already joined us and to those of you joining us from Guyana. Wonderful good evening to you. Good evening. Good evening, Emily and Mavis and Franklin, Donna, Esther, those of you who I am seeing in front of me. Welcome to Politics 101. Good evening to those of you joining us from the wider Caribbean. Welcome to Politics 101. If you're joining us from further afield in New York, Canada, Europe, good night to you who are joining us from the United Kingdom. Welcome to Politics 101. Those of you who are joining us from away on the mother country, Africa, welcome to Politics 101. And not forgetting those of you who are joining us from Paramaribo, of course, yes, French Guyana, Paramaribo, Suriname, Venezuela, Brazil. Welcome to Politics 101. It's good to be on with you as always. As we come on air tonight, we note that the opposition, the APNU, I should say, the APNU was able to provide letters to the media today showing at least 13 people who said that they were placed as backers of the PPP list and that this was done without their consent. The PPP also said that there are people who are on the APNU list or support the APNU list who did so without their consent, but they were not able to provide letters. When confronted, Mr. Jack Dio said that the people who signed the letters saying that they did not give the PPP permission, that these people were bullied by the PNC. Oh my, it's all falling apart. What's the hype? All this hype, what's the hype about this list of multiracial nature provided by the PPP? What's the hype? There was bound to be some padding of that list. Good evening. Welcome to Politics 101. Welcome to Politics 101. You see, you can't buy your way entirely in this business. You can't buy your way. You can't buy your way. There are bound to be some holes that are left. There are bound to be some people who will trick you. And it seems as though some people have tricked the PPP. Welcome to Politics 101. Good evening, Morna Peterkin, former Member of Parliament. Good evening to you. Good evening, my sister Denise Booker. Good evening. Good evening, Karen Elliott, Karen Golden Grove people. Welcome to Politics 101. It was bound to happen. It was bound to happen. Now you're saying that the PNC are bullying people. Well, let's say the PNC bully people. I don't know bully is the right term. If you come in to my yard and you're trying to entice my family with big money, I'm going to sit by and allow you to do it. So if the PNC managed to get the people to change their mind, kudos to the PNC. They should do more of that. Isn't the PPP bullying people when they go to them with money? That is the bullying. You use your big status and your big money to lure suspecting and unsuspecting people. That's bullying. If the PNC went and get the people who already took the money to say, I changed my mind, kudos to the PNC. They ought to be doing more of that. Don't come in my yard and entice my people. Welcome to Politics 101. We're going to have a couple of PNC members on later on. We're going to have them. Shanika Haynes, most of you would know her. She's the person that chairs the PNC's press conferences. She's joining me later. She's traveling at the moment. And young Kibwe Koblen, the chair of the GYSM, who's also a candidate in Georgetown, would join me later. I tried to get somebody from Linden, but I've not been successful. People, seem to be very busy. I hope they're busy campaigning. Welcome to Politics 101. What's the hype? What's the hype? I saw Mr. Jack Dio saying that the APNU is not contesting in 45% of the districts or 45% of the districts and municipalities. Well, they said they're only contesting in their strongholds. Why are you trying to make a capital out of that? Who are you trying to fool? The entire opposition has said that the elections are held on the rules that have not been agreed on by everyone. The entire opposition has said that the voters list is not clean. The PNC, of course, has opted to partially participate as a pragmatic move. Not that they have confidence in the system, but they've made a pragmatic decision. So here we are. We also come on air tonight where the media are in the spotlight. We saw the PPP going after a Kaitro News reporter. We saw the president himself holding a press conference at the synthetic track, I think there on the West Coast, Lenora, and going after media operatives from Kaitro News. We have seen them go after the president or chairman of the Guyana Press Association, Ms. Ragbeer. The PPP has led the way in attacking the media. And yesterday we got news that a media person called a PNC leader, and the PNC leader cussed her out. Not at a press conference, this was in a private conversation. Obviously, the reporter taped it and released it to the media. And Ms. Joseph, the PNC leader, apologized for using bad words. She apologized. Carol Joseph has apologized to a journalist who she spoke to privately and cursed her. We are yet to hear an apology from the president and the vice president for the way their operatives have treated the Kaitro News reporters. I repeat, Carol Joseph apologized for cussing a journalist in a private conversation. The PPP leaders have publicly abused journalists, and they haven't apologized. I hope the Press Association and all the others are noting the difference. Now, on the case of the Chronicle journalist, whom Ms. Joseph cussed out, there is another issue that has to be put on the table here. I know the journalist. She's a fine journalist. But this business of, and both parties are guilty of it, this business of whenever a party is in power, it turns the state media into a party media. and then bullies the reporters of the state media to go out there and function as party journalists. They bully them. As I said, both parties are guilty of it, but the PPP is more guilty of it. At least at the Chronicle, for 3 years, they allowed Lincoln Lewis and myself to write columns critical of the government. After 3 years, they couldn't take it. They throw me out. But at least they allowed us to do it for 3 years. The PPP has not allowed one single column in the Chronicle in 3 years that is critical of the government. The Chronicle editorializes the news. That is, the news is presented as opinion. The other papers do it too. But the Chronicle does it more. And what the Chronicle is doing is forcing journalists to put behind their professionalism and to act as party reporters. I am not saying this to justify the lady cussing the journalist. She should not have done that. But I'm saying there are two issues. There's the cussing of the journalist, and there's the other issue of the Chronicle, the PPP through the Chronicle, forcing journalists to act unprofessionally. I am not saying the young lady, the journalist, acted unprofessionally. I'm saying what is normative of the state media. So they make the journalists look foolish. I know many, many reporters and journalists who work at the state media in order to put food on the table. And they don't agree with the stances that the state media asks them to take up. So we have to bear that in mind too. You see, I have said, I thought it was a mistake during the 2020 dispute over the general elections, general and regional elections, for the media to have taken sides. The Kaitro News took sides. The PPP side, they helped to bring the PPP to government. The Stabrook News took their side. Of course, Guyana Times is owned by the PPP. But there was bound to be a spin-off. The press and the media should not become overly entangled in partisan disputes. And what happened in 2010 was a partisan dispute. They said, they peddled this nonsense about saving democracy. You can save what's not there? Nothing democratic about Guyana's electoral arrangement. Look at GCOM. Is there anything democratic about GCOM? Is anything democratic when 47 boxes have no statutory documents? Is anything democratic when people who are not in the jurisdiction are voting? And so people watch us and tell us that they save democracy. What democracy? 47 boxes without statutory document? Not even a primary school child, will say that is democracy. But yet they save democracy. The elections have not yet been decided. They're before the courts. And the cases have not been heard because the PPP doesn't want them to be heard. If you save democracy, then let the court pronounce on this democracy that you save. But back to the media. The media took sides in a quarrel between two parties. The PPP said they saw Mr. Mingo attempting to rig. The coalition said they saw boxes without statutory documents. They saw people voted who were not in the country, and the police verified it. It's a partisan quarrel. What the hell the media was doing, taking side? Why were the media taking sides in a partisan argument? But the media did. The media became overly entangled in partisan electoral dispute. Report the news. Don't take sides. Lincoln Lewis and myself, again, the unfortunate duo, we had to leave Kaichor News because Kaichor News said our stance was not in keeping with their stance. My stance at the election was that the election was disputed. I don't know which side win. Kaichor News said that was not their stance. Now, the very Kaichor News that helped to bring the PPP to government, that took their side in a dispute, look how the PPP treating them. When will we learn? I am not saying the way the PPP is treating them is right. They're wrong. The PPP is wrong. But I want to remind the people that you play with the puppy, you get bitten by the flea. Actions got reactions. You help to bring a government to power illegally. You participated in giving a disputed election to one side. Now that side you help to install, not I say so, the Americans say so. The Americans say the government is installed. Now that installed government that you help to install, cut in your tail. I hope the media are learning lessons. Stay out of party disputes. Black Stalin said, what goes wrong so, come back wrong so. What is the reason? Nobody don't know. The Calypsonian always with the wisdom. Once the media got itself overly entangled in a partisan dispute, you leave yourself exposed. The very Stabrook News, which they took away ads from, help took a side in the partisan dispute on the PPP side. Now, Jack, you're cussing them. The Stabrook News got a beef with me. They don't carry my letter. They don't carry nothing that No, nothing that the WPA puts out discriminating against a party and its members. Is that press freedom? Is that press freedom? Is that media democracy? Because the WPA did not say that the coalition rigged the election in 2020. The Stabroek News beating we since then. The media have to be exposed, even as we criticize those who attack the media. Those who are attacking the media, the PPP, they must be exposed and condemned. But the media must also be exposed for what they do. They're not angels. And so here we are today. Good evening. Welcome to Politics 101. Mr. Kit Nascimento was at it last night. He was on the Freddie Kissoon Gildari show. And the man is more concerned about where I live, where I work, and my citizenship. The man has declared me an American citizen. And my old friend sat there and said nothing, even though he know the truth about my citizenship. You know, the APNU didn't want me. Some people in the APNU didn't want me on the APNU list for the last elections, and they began spreading thing that I was an American citizen. And as I did, I showed up with my documents and put it in front of the person. I said, look, there, I engrave them. And the reason I don't get into this thing about who are citizens of where and who live where is not for myself. It's for the over 750,000 Guyanese who live outside of Guyana, and some of them in Guyana consider that a crime. People have a right to decide where they want to live. People have a right to decide which country they want to be a citizen of. Kit Nascimento said, Rickford Burke and I are traitors because we ran away from Guyana. So 750,000 people are traitors because, quote unquote, they ran away from Guyana, according to these people who say they are patriots. People have a right to decide where they want to live. People have a right to decide whether they want to be dual citizens. They're not traitors. Many of Guyanese, as you all know, who live outside, support Guyana with all the money that they send for their relatives and friends. They support the Guyanese economy. Yet people like Kit Nascimento curses them and call them traitors. Kit Nascimento challenged me to go home and run for elections, running elections. I have been a candidate for either the WPA or the coalition in all but maybe 1 or 2 elections since 1985. And I couldn't be a candidate in recent elections if I were an American citizen, because by then the court had sanctioned. As I told the PNC leader, I ain't craving for citizenship. I'm quite comfortable having one citizenship. But I am not saying that to say that those people who have dual citizenship, something is wrong with them. They're right if they want to. That's their business. I want Nascimento to invite me to go back to Guyana so that me and he can run against one another, since he wants me to go and run an election, according to him. For the last 26 years, I hope, Mr. Nascimento, you're listening. You're very interested in my life, where me live. I maintain residence in Guyana and America. I spent 20 weeks out of 52 weeks per year in Guyana, where I live for 20 weeks. And I work in America and live here for 32. Mr. Nascimento, you want to know my story? I'm going to tell you. I maintain a home in Guyana and one in America. That's my right, and that's my business. And many Guyanese do that. Many Guyanese in New York and Barbados or wherever get a house in Guyana. They contribute to that country. I'm a firm supporter of overseas voting. I know we had overseas voting on the Burnham time and it was used dishonorably. But at a conference, a diaspora conference in 2016, I presented a paper where I made the case for the return of overseas votes. That Guyanese overseas, once they meet certain thresholds, certain standards, they contribute to the country economically, they have a home in the country and so on, they should be allowed to vote. That's my position. I'm not forcing it on nobody, but that's my position. I voted in 2011, I voted in 2015, I voted in 2020. I was a candidate for those elections. So I am not one of those from Queens who name on the voters list. They sit down in Queens and somebody else voting for them. I present myself, I voted. I was a candidate, I campaigned, and I voted. Mr. Katkit Nascimento. This is the traitor you're talking about. Some of these people, you worry about them. I will fight for the right of overseas Guyanese to be given their right as a citizen. There are very many ways you can do it. You can count their votes as half a vote. If you feel that they're outside, they're not there all the time, and so on, give them the vote, but you can count it as half a vote. Or you can ask them, look, you have to have certain assets in the country, or you have to transmit so much money per year to your family, and so on. There are conditions under which you can have overseas voting. Rather than sit there and cussing Guyanese who go outside to make a better life for themselves. They came outside to make a better life for themselves. If all 750,000 Guyanese were to go back home, no, we got funds We got money to create institutions so all them can live happily. But prior to oil, if all of we go back and Guyana get a population of 2 million, how we would live in that country? And even now, but yet people like Kit Nascimento say he cussing people. They're traitors to Guyana. They ran away. And Frederick soon sit down near him. And he couldn't bring himself to say, man, Kit, no, the man is not a Guyanese, he's not an American citizen. The man just come home 4 or 5 months a year. I mean, I don't expect Kit to know that because Kit is not interested in people like me. People like me is nothing according, as far as Kit is saying. But here, Kit revealed something last night. And whenever I see him, I'm going to shake his hand. I will shake his hand. You know what Kit revealed? Kit said last night that none of the media quoted Ogunse correctly. I know that. Kit said, old man, but he's a old professional media person. So he didn't only listen to what Ogunse said, he transcribed it and he read from it. My God, the reporters couldn't do that. You go to all the papers, all the TV, they're quoting what Ogunse never said. Never. All of them. A friendly journalist, a young man, I drew it to her attention. I said, brother, you know, you're not quoting Ogunse correctly. Did you listen to the address? He said yes. So I said, man, go back. The next day I see he put the same thing. So it's laziness. Ogunse in that speech said, one day we were at a gathering, and as I was leaving, a white diplomat pulled me aside and said, why are you black people complaining when the army and the police, they come from your group and they have guns in there? Ogunse is reporting a white diplomat. You know, the media report that those are Ogunse's speech. Not that Ogunse cited a white diplomat. They put it as Ogunse words. And Kit Nascimento pointed that out last night. God bless him. At least he's a professional communication man. You first of all must report factually. All of them took what the PPP said, Ogunse said, and report that. Sabrok News reported on the Ogunse matter from the police bulletin. The media in Guyana need a lot of brushing up. Thank you, Kit, for calling them out. But you're wrong, Kit, on calling those who live outside of Guyana, partly or fully, traitors. They come back to Guyana tomorrow. You get work for give them? You get pension and social security to give them? But I will deal with Mr. Nascimento in a separate intervention. Good evening and welcome to Politics 101. I'm awaiting two PNC candidates. I have not seen them here yet. Yes, one of them has made contact with me, and she is going to be on shortly. And they will come here to talk about the PNC's local government election and their nomination day, and what's this hype that the PPP will win Georgetown and they will win Linden and they will win New Amsterdam and they will win this because they got a few people to put on some green jersey and flunks themselves on the streets like ornaments, because that's what the PPP made them out to be, ornaments. Ornaments. And they declare themselves winner. A psychological, red jersey, not green. Red, I don't know why I'm saying green. I'm a green man. Red jersey. They put on some red jersey and flunks in themselves. And when they're in the PPP marches, they're shoving mic in front of them. Patricia Chase Green, she was a GGG, you know, when Hamilton Green had formed his own party. And then she moved from GGG to PNC. And now she moved from PNC to PPP. I wonder what she's looking for. You see, this is the problem with some of these people. They're not looking to represent anybody. They're looking to represent themselves. You see, in the old days, you had to come through the ranks of a party to become mayor and to become this and become that. Now you can walk off the road from the other side and you go in these parties and they give you a big position over some people who were with the party from since Noah was a scout. And that is why at a certain level I am not crying about people like Patricia Green and the other young lady who says she can't on the other side, the other town councillor, and the others. I'm not crying over them because it should be a teachable moment for the PNC. I know many people there in the PNC since they're born, and they never get no position, and people come in after them and turn big this and big that. And I hope the PNC is learning. I hope they're learning. They got plenty people who there with the party forever. And maybe because they're not glamorous, they make up numbers. Why people who are good catches come in and get position over them. I hope the I'm not a PNC and I ain't getting into PNC business, but I hope they learn. I hope all parties learn. Some people are just hustlers. They're just hustlers. And they're being exposed now. All them that flunks themselves up there. when the PPP get the 3 seat or 4 seat, is only 4 of them gonna go in? All the rest who said that they're on the list, they know that they ain't going, they ain't getting no position. So you ask yourself, is what they get in return for putting on the jersey? That is the question. Welcome to Politics 101. Good evening. Waiting on my guests to join us. And we'll talk about what this hype is about. What this hype is about. As I've said, people have a right to belong to whatever party they want to belong to. But people don't have the moral right to watch a party killing the people, robbing the people, carrying blows to the people, and then go and say you joining that party for one Guyana? What kind of fool is you? As Brother Dick Gregory would ask, what kind of fool is you? I for one Guyana. One Guyana based on what? Have they integrated the money? Have they integrated the wealth? So it's a one Guyana without wealth. Sparrow said you can't make love on hungry belly. If we're going to be one Guyana, it means we're making love. But you get all the wealth, and I ain't get wealth, and we's one. What kind of fool is you? What kind of fool is you? One Guyana is an empty calabash. Integrate the wealth. Make it one. We want in Guyana strong opposition. No, we need a strong government, not a strong opposition. You all think that certain people are only good for being opposition. They ain't good for being government. We don't want no two-party system. We want an all-party system. All parties should be able to exercise power. The PNC need to stop being this and be a strong opposition. No, the PNC need to be part of a strong government. Opposition don't do S. Opposition ain't got no influence. Influence is in government. Why do you want PNC people to wake up every day and see their leaders in opposition? We're gonna straighten them. We're gonna straighten them. We're gonna straighten them. All these terms, PNC must be a strong opposition. No, the PNC must be part of a strong government because PNC people want to see their people in government. PNC people want to see North in opposition. They want to see North in government. But we're going to straighten the thing with them. My auntie always tell me, you go to school not just to read and write, but you go to school so that people can make you a fool. And as we speak, PNC member is here with me, Shanika Hinds.
Good evening.
Good evening. How are you?
I am good, rushing in coming from some field work.
Wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
So they just announced, the PPP just announced today that based on what they have seen in the boxes that they start to fill, that the PPP within Georgetown. What story is this?
Probably like the signatures, the fake signatures that they have been filling.
Tell us about the fake signatures.
Well, what I can say, we presented some information to the media today after we had that press conference, and we give a sample of 4 different constituencies where we see all of the signatures are exactly the same. I mean, you don't need to be a fingerprint, handwriting expert to see immediately it is the same person. And I mean, we understand that the PPP are a group of people who are accustomed being corrupt, doing everything the wrong way, etc. But the fact that you're in what you will call, quote unquote, your strongholds, and you have to sit down and write out all your signatures by one person rather than going in to your communities and talk to your people is one thing. For instance, in my NDC, I work in the Better Hope to LBI NDC, which is also considered to be a stronghold of the PPP. And we had lots of issues where the RO had to inform them, one, that they had some persons who were on our list there and that they needed to take them off. Then we had cases where we saw some persons who, after they examined the list, they went into the RO and said, listen, I didn't sign this sheet. I don't know anything about this. You need to take my name off the list. And those examples are primarily starting out in what is called their quote unquote stronghold. And that in itself tells you a lot. I mean, just camping out to get number one. I mean, I hear a lot of things on social media. There is a lot of talk happening. But the fact that the PPP, for the first time in history, had to camp out in front of places to try to get number one because they can't go back and correct a list or get a signature, is a signal that the PPP has trouble in the camp. They know it. And we now, as the citizens of this country and the political party that is opposing, need to now get out and do our work and ensure that a statement is made when we get to that point.
Shanika, hold a second. Kibre is here, and I want to welcome him. I need you, Shanika, to explain the advantage of being in line force and getting to present your paper first.
All right. So basically for us, what we tend to do, especially I would have had some contention in one of my communities there where we knew that the PPP went in tricking persons to vote. When we approached them, they didn't realize what they had signed, as a matter of fact, in some cases. And some were straight up. They told us they approached them and they didn't sign. So in ensuring that we will not have to go back and correct our list or look for more signatures, because we were working in the fields, we decided to ensure that we get that number one. So whatever is on our list sits there. Once the signatures and every other thing pens out, any changes or duplicates in names on the two lists, whether it be the PPP or ours, the person who comes in after number one will then have to go again and replace those names and fix their list. So that's one major advantage in ensuring that you are number one in the line. And to say I went into what they call the PPP backyard, where all the councillors live right next to the area that we had to hand in, and they got a shock when they got there Sunday afternoon. And I really feel they choose that location because for some reason they thought myself and others would have been scared to camp out there. and they got the shock of their life, and some people got a licking. Some of the counselors we heard got a licking to understand that we made the APNU camp out before them to get that number one.
So the story is this. If I sign supporting the APNU list, and then the PPP come tomorrow and give me a $5,000 and a box of food, and says sign we list, I take the $5,000, the box of food, I sign their list.
Correct.
When you go in first, you clear.
Correct.
When the PPP go in with the $5,000 and
signature.
You already got me there.
So they have to go and change their signature.
So some people trick them like that.
Correct. In my NDC, we had a lot of that. If you go, the reporters are asking questions, and I mean, you can verify these things easily. The lists are posted on the wall, and you will see on the PPPC list that they had a lot of scratching out to do because they had to take those persons off of their list.
You all hear the story. You all hear the story. You all hear the trickery. What went on? Kibwe Copeland, chairman of the GYSM. Welcome to Politics 101 again. Kibwe, are you hearing me?
Yes, I'm hearing you. Sorry.
Oh, okay, steady that phone. Let tell Aubrey and them let her give you a computer, the phone thing. Don't shake up too much.
No, it's not that. But I was moving. I didn't even get home as yet. So I got not trying to miss the show.
Oh, so you're doing it in your car?
Yeah, no, not in my car. Out my car, but I ain't home as yet. We're comfortable with everything, with all the amenities. So that is the issue I have.
You stop short.
Yes, that's right.
Right. All right, Kibwe. So you are a candidate in Georgetown. I saw you on election day in some of the pictures there and so forth. And how are you feeling about the chances of the PPP winning Georgetown by 98% to the APNU 2%?
Now, the mistake you made, you said the chances. There's no chance. There's no chance that the PPP could get any 90 or even 10%, close to 5% of winning anything in Georgetown. Georgetown has always been the stronghold of the APNU PNC and will continue to be the stronghold. Jag himself said it since 1957. They haven't been able to win the city, and he was pleading with people to give them a chance, but that chance will not be given because people are smarter than that. People understand what they really want. They want to control each and every part of power in this country so they could continue to manipulate it, continue to mismanage resources, and to give to friends and cronies, of course, for only some to benefit. And I'm more than confident that the APNU, my candidacy, and all the other constituency candidates will come out strong, will gain the support in the communities. I represent constituency 14, that is South Rumvelt Park, Gardens, Rasville, Roxanne, and it is a clear indication. Even when you go on the ground, people say the whole gimmick, the whole $10,000 or bully the contract workers to come out and show a big crowd is not going to win any elections.
Kibwe, you are running. Who's your opponent? Who you running against? Tell me, audience.
Well, I'll tell you this. I know when it comes to some people be personal. To be honest, to give you details about the person, I can't give it as yet because it's not somebody who's on the ground. It's not somebody that's even known by the community that much. But you're going to get somebody, of course, and you try to, try the little trickery, but it's not going to work. I know I'm running against Bobby Vale as well, who was a member of the PNC at some point in time, who would have started his own independent party in constituency 14. But the opponents, it's good to have opposition, Yes. But we know the results, what the results will be at the end of the ED on 6 p.m.
Shanika, I heard Jack Dio said today that 45% of the constituencies the PNC is not contesting in, and a national party cannot put up candidate. Didn't the PNC say, did I get it wrong? Didn't the PNC say they're only participating in some constituencies?
Yes, we did say that we would be participating to ensure that, one, we do not allow our strongholds to be taken over, And we further decided that we were going to contest in other areas as well, because we see the need based on what is happening and from requests on the ground to ensure that we put up representation in a lot of those areas. And from my information, and that's why you don't take much that comes out of Jagdio's mouth, because the truth and Jagdio apparently doesn't work well in the same space. So we are participating in most of the NDCs. We are participating in most of the towns. We had some issues with Letem that we're trying to work out. We had an issue at Diamond Grove that we're also trying to work out. But it's most of the NDCs and the towns municipality. So his part, the 5% came from his head somewhere. I don't know where.
Many people are saying, and this is for both you and Kibwe, well, not many. Some people are saying that people don't turn out at local government elections in large numbers in the first place. I think the highest turnout must have been 35% at the 2016 local government elections. And so people we're not into the culture of turning out at local government elections. And the fact that the party has not had people out in demonstrations, it makes mobilization for the election a little bit more difficult than normal. First of all, do you agree with that? And second, what's your strategy? And I'm not asking you to give me party secrets, but what's your public strategy for getting as many people out to the polls as possible?
So I'll tell you off the bat. The major strategy is ensuring that our people walk our communities door to door, not just the little public meetings at the corner and that kind of thing that we're generally accustomed to, and just the Facebook talking and posting. But the major thing that we have been doing is ensuring that we walk our communities and talk to our supporters and talk to people who aren't sure where they want to vote or if they want to vote, to get them to understand, one, the importance of voting, especially now with all the things that we see happening, and Jagdio giving all these chats. Today we were in the Myconi area at Perth and Strat Campbell and those areas. And one of the messages, at least we ensure that we carry, is that it's not just about a regular local government election. But if Jagdio wants to talk about a referendum, we have to tell our people and beat into them the importance of showing up at this election to ensure that the government knows that we are dissatisfied with you, and that not just that we will show up to the election and participate in voting, but we're asking our people as well to ensure that they help us to come out, get trained, so we man these polling stations and ensure that the way that the PPP likes to do skullduggery, that we put a stop into it in the polling places when we have well-trained staff who understand what is needed in the polling stations, and that we have our communities helping us to safeguard our ballots as well, just as if it was a general election. So we are walking our communities, our candidates, we are impressing in them. This is not a Facebook fight. This is on the ground fight. We have to go to everybody's homes. We have to talk to them, and we have to ensure that we let them know the importance of coming out and having your voice heard now.
Shanika Haynes, a PNC member, the person whose face you see cheering, well, not her face cheering, whose face and person you see in that chair chairing the press conferences of the leader of the opposition here tonight in a different role. Kibwe, you don't have any big money from oil to give to your constituents. No doubt the PPP person got some of the dirty money dangling before constituents. How you intend to counter that dirtiness that the PPP would be doing for a campaign?
Well, you see, just as Shanika would have said, local government elections is about local government elections are all about local representation, and it's important for you to meet with the locals in your community. This money sharing handouts, which they might think is effective, yes, you're giving people a little bread there and here and there, but it's not the representation people are looking for. People, I think people are smart enough today to understand that $25,000, even $100,000 is not enough money to buy their vote or to buy the ID card or anything that they want to buy. Or my intention, and this is the intention of all of our councillors, is to go out and meet persons in the communities, to visit people, knock on every door. If we can touch on every door in our constituency, that's a plus. To communicate with people, not only to communicate our message or our interest or intent for the community, but also to hear from them. You know, you have to put yourself in a position whereby I might have my own personal experience about my constituency. I know some of the problems that I would have faced, but at this time I'm going to divorce all of that, meet with people and hear what they've been dealing with, what the issues that they see are important. It's important for you to have that one-on-one, communicate with people, and of course, while communicating with them, you have to share a vision. We want communities that are safe for children to grow up in. It must have the facilities for playgrounds, must have facilities to encourage entrepreneurship, must have facilities for senior people to live a comfortable life in their senior ages. We must have communities that are well-rounded, well-connected, of course, and it needs representation. We don't just want people who are going to buy a vote and we don't know what's going to happen after they get into to the Mayor City Council. We want persons who are going to go into Mayor City Council and continuously represent the cars, represent drainage, represent security, represent contracts, bring avenues to bring in employment into the communities. So our strategy is basically just as the party would have been doing since the minority would have taken over as the leader of the PNCR, boots on the ground, making sure that you're grounded, make sure that you're connected to the people. And the PPP, if you should try to weigh out their candidates or our candidates, we have the best candidates. We have candidates who are entrepreneurs, candidates who are intellectuals, who are academics. We have candidates who are connected to the people on the ground. So we have a mix of people who understand today's pressures, who understand today's problems, who are connected to the people, who knows the issues. So they don't have to come and buy a vote. I don't have to come and give any dirty money. The PPP can continue to share how much money they want. As we'd said, money don't buy votes. Money can't vote. And Georgetown, as we've been chanting at nomination day, Georgetown is not for sale. So they could share as much money as possible. It's not going to win the vote.
Now, let me ask both of you some real questions, right? Now, we know that the voters list is in bad shape. Mm-hmm. We know that the PPP has put their people in charge of GCOM. And I'm sure when you all go on the campaign trail, some of our people will say, if the architecture bad, why you all contesting the election? What answers would you all give them? Starting with you, Shanika.
Well, what I will say, and this is what we have been saying after careful consideration to ensure that we enter this race. Now, if our laws in Guyana do not permit, if a local government election is called and every other party decides that they will not contest, it doesn't mean that that election will be called off. That will then permit, like we have our first past the post system, particularly in our local democracy, stipulates even when you have just one candidate, there is a ballot paper prepared and people go and vote despite there is no competition. And it would be the same thing we would be seeing if everybody just sits out of that election, which will then permit the PPP to have hold in every single stronghold we consider to be the coalition or people who are in need of our representation, who would have put us to represent us at the national level, even now at the local level, we would be seeing zero representation for those people. And at the rate things are happening, we have these systems set in place, and the PPP is being trying to maneuver their way around. How can we allow our places to go to just allow the PPP to walk in and do whatever they want without any legal or constitutional right to stop them in regards of representation in the local setting? I, for one, did not want to see that happen, because as it is right now, it's bad. More so if we allow them to do so. So for me, it is extremely important in our areas that we find representation. My LAA is generally not an LAA that is won by the coalition. We have a few seats on that council. But with those few seats, once the persons in those areas back us, we're able to get things done. Without that, when we don't have our people backing us and we don't have a seat on that council, what generally happens is our communities are neglected. Our roads are left undone, our garbage is not collected. A lot of issues arise when we do not have representation. And our people have to understand that governance starts at the very bottom, which they help us with, and ensure that they hold us accountable as they should nationally.
You just came back from Maikoni, and so it means that you're on the ground, and you obviously are hearing people's complaints, people's frustrations. And one of the things I know I have been hearing from our supporters, meaning the supporters of the opposition, is that when we were in government, we didn't do much for them. It's a perennial question, and it's a question that the PPP exploits opportunistically. But it's a real question. How are you answering that question as you are on the campaign trail?
Well, that's my favorite question to answer when I'm on the ground. And today I went to length at every area we went to talk about it. Because I think as a people, sometimes we are quick to take on whatever is said, or what people perceive to be the general feeling. Now, the PPP is going into our areas, and you're hearing this conversation about the coalition did nothing for our people. They did nothing for us. And there is nothing that can be farther from the truth, in my view. I like to start out by saying I'm a young person. The majority of my life, I lived it under a PPPC government. And off the bat, the coalition allowed Guyanese to experience a much calmer side of our country, a country where we were able to make reports and see those matters addressed at the police station, an issue where we were seeing crimes being solved. And I didn't have to deal with the trauma that my children at that period didn't have to deal with the trauma I dealt with as a child. Every 2 mornings, I live on the East Coast, every 2 mornings, it was a gunshot here, a gunshot there. You're afraid to go out on the road. We were accustomed, much younger, going out to the seawall every Sunday. That was something that was automatically stopped. You didn't want to be on the road after 6. And it is not so far in the past that we can't talk about it, because we are seeing some elements of that returning. And we must speak about it. We must remind those who somehow forget that that is the state that we lived in. But we did not see that in the 5 years under the coalition. Guyana Power and Light, everybody, every day we complaining about it. Blackout, blackout, blackout. For some reason, the coalition was somehow able to lessen the issue of blackouts. We rarely had blackouts under the coalition, and I don't think most people can argue that fact from what we're seeing here currently. You talk about water. There were a lot of places in this country that did not have water. And not just water, but the quality of water that we got in the 5 years compared to what we experienced prior to, the comparison is way beyond anything. And it is so amazing that just in 1 and 2 years, you understand, we are going back to brown water, smelly water. And, you know, part of that is another thing that we saw when the PPP came back in. GWI lost almost 300 members of staff because a man that was there before 2015 thought that they had too much staff, despite there were so many new wells added. You had more engineers to help. That's why we were getting cleaner water and all these things. And he decided, look, when I was here, we didn't have 84 engineers. What we need that for? He pushed it down to 20-something. He fired all those engineers. And we didn't experience that. We experienced proper water under GWI. Never in the history of Guyana, let's talk about the ordinary people and the public servants. Never in the history of Guyana did we see a 77% increase in less than 5 years. For the 23 years that the PPP was in power prior to 2015, we did not even experience a 50% increase as public servants. Now, how could you now walk into our communities and we're talking about the basic things that a government is responsible for? Infrastructure, protection of its citizens, ensuring water, ensuring life. These basic things. You are coming to our citizens to say we didn't provide that for them. I will agree with persons. We probably did not see a lot of or they felt that they did not see a lot of the top brass coalition persons enough during the period. But to say that the coalition did absolutely nothing is definitely the farthest thing from the truth.
Definitely the farthest thing.
We can clean a city. We could go on and on. There are so many things that the coalition did for this country. So us as citizens have to sit down and think as well when they bring this to us. You tell me what you experienced better in the 5 years compared to what you experienced in the 23 before, and where we are sharply heading in just 3 years of the PPP back in power.
Kibre, anything to add to what Shanika said there?
Yes, for sure. When we look at youth, under our leader, Bin Norton, when he was the presidential vice president empowerment, we saw leadership trainings. We had over 500 and something young people who were trained in leadership. We had leadership trainings across the country. We had night schools that were established in Sophia, in Festival City, Suesdijk, and other areas, which since the PPP got back into power 2020, they closed. Right? We had training programs for heavy-duty operations for young people. There was so much that we've been done for young people across this country. Barton College, which they closed down soon. You know, the PPP is not interested in education. They're not interested in an educated nation. You know, I believe that they want people to be more literate so they can bring anything past them. But even with common sense, with simple common sense, you can see the trickery of the PPP. Under the APN UFC government, we had, as Shanika was talking about just now, a cleaner city. We're more pride and more patriotic in this country. Under the APN UFC government, we were not shooting down young African men in the streets. We were not bullying people to come out of their workplaces to put on jerseys to protest. We were pushing this country towards a more democratic state, whereby people had the freedom to even align to different political parties, the freedom to speak. I believe the press was even more independent under the APN UFC. Now the press are totally controlled. Most of them can't say anything. And even when you say something to them, they try to twist your words. So we have seen under the PPP a government that it tries in every effort to control people, to manipulate people, and to misuse the resources of this country. On the APAFC, we didn't see race, we didn't see social status, we didn't see communities as different from anyone. Everyone had a chance. And yes, we were only there for 5 years. There's only so much that can have been done in that particular time. When we took over after the PVP in 2015, there was a big hole that we had to full force before we could even start to do anything. And even though they had that big hole, even though we didn't have oil money as the PVP has now that they share it out like Santa Claus every day, we were able to do so much within that short amount of time. So to see that we have done nothing.
When you tell young people that, do you feel that you have been able to change minds? Now there are people who you don't have to tell that narrative because they with the program, but there are those skeptics. Do you get the impression that you have been changing minds?
I do. I have the impression when we go to young people, a lot of them don't have this information. You see, it's sadly that a lot of young people don't listen to the news. They don't read the papers. They're not really into the know. They don't even know there are opportunities that are right out there that they can put their hands on. So when we go in and meet them where they are, we try as much as possible to relate. These are the things that have been done. You know, so there are a lot of young people who have benefited. There are a lot of people who have not been benefiting as yet. But if the APNU was still in power, this benefit was being transcended right across the country. But I believe, at least from my experience, when I talk to young people, I see this level of interest, like what this actually happened. You know, I see this level of concern that there's still opportunities that are out there. There are much opportunities. And I think what people don't understand is the wealth that this country holds today. This country is extremely rich, but the people are extremely poor. We can't live in a country whereby we are blooming with oil. Even the Chinese supermarkets, which was people's favorite supermarket if you're not so wealthy because they get the cheapest things there. You can't go and buy anything there either. So I believe that young people are listening. I believe they are listening.
Shanika, you think you've been changing minds?
You know, I sometimes, as a young person, I think that, we have youths out there who all they're seeing is money and they want, but I think sometimes we go away with the idea that generally young people, we ain't got sense, we ain't know nothing, we can't understand anything. But when we go out there and have conversations with young people, there are those who are now hearing certain things for the first time. And it's opening their minds to, well, this really happened. I didn't know this happened. As we said, they're getting new information. And there's some of them will tell you plain, Auntie, I'm collecting money, but we got you, right? So we know there are different types of young people that you have to deal with, but continuing to go into their communities and educate them and helping them out. One of the things that I want to remind the public, we took it light that there was the Bertram College, which actually took, when young persons would have written CXC, you had persons who would have joined the night schools that we would have opened up across the country, who for some reason would have dropped out of secondary school and needed a second chance. It was the coalition that opened those night schools to help them. And in turn, they were then able, once they acquired, those things, they were trained at the Bertram College and placed into the public sector, where we saw that you are beginning to have a more professional public sector because of young people who are being trained to work in these places. And there are a lot of young people who experienced that part. A lot of them who went to the train the night schools, etc., so they understand what we're talking about. And there are others that we will continue to engage the way they would like to be engaged. If I have to go and sit down at the street corner with them and have the gap for them to understand every other day, I will continue to do it with my colleagues, because we will continue to work with our young people, and the PPP will not take us as young people for fools.
Shanika Haynes and Kibwe Copeland, young members of the People's National Congress, filling us in on the last few days of the local government developments. I want to thank you all so much for rushing from your campaign to come and to update our audience, and please come back. I will be asking you all to come on more often than normal to bring us up to date with what's happening on the campaign trail. And if you all have pictures and videos to share, please give me them before so that they can accompany your presentations.
I will share with you for today. I will share with you those list of, you know, same signature. So whenever you're having a conversation with your audience, you can share that with them as well.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you very much, and I will see you all shortly. And
thank you.
To you, our audience, loyal as ever, loyal as ever. Thank you all for staying with me tomorrow night. I think I'm going to try to get Brother Vincent on to give us the take from the GCOM side of things. And of course, we have that IPADG issue that is still burning. See you all tomorrow night, Friday night. Until then, take care.